Now that you know how to audit and analyze your existing content, it's time to develop a full-on content strategy that will give you recommendations on how to create and deliver and manage web content. The content strategy is the skeleton of the entire content process. It will help you fill in the missing pieces once you know what goes where. To understand the content strategy phase better, try to answer the following questions. What content do we need and why? How will the content be structured? How will users find your web content? How will we get from today to launch? What's next once the content is out there? You may have only been able to answer the first two questions without thinking too much about it from the previous modules on content audit and content analysis. However, in order to gain full perspective on the rest of the questions, we have to complete a content strategy. Before you start answering any of the content strategy questions, we need to take a look at the branding and messaging of your company. Your company's brand and messaging needs to be reflected in your website, as this will be your online image. When considering the voice or tone of your messaging, we suggest that you use the following contrasting values as a guideline. Professional, not academic. Confident, not arrogant. Clever, not cutesy. Savvy, not hip. Expert, not preachy. Next, you want to create editorial guidelines to make sure that content stays consistent and accurate throughout. Here are a few examples of what to include in your style or editorial guide. Brand values, voice and tone guidelines, correct word usage, product trademark usage, web writing considerations, organization's choice of global style guide, web writing best practices. It's important that everyone working on your site's content refer to the same style guide. Next is the type of messages you want the users to learn, see or use. The messages need to coincide with your brand and business objectives. To simplify the millions of messages you may want the user to understand, use a hierarchy system. Begin with your primary message, which is the single most important thing you want users to learn. Then your secondary messages will supplement the primary message. Next, the details, which are facts, data, anecdotes or philosophies that substantiate your messages. Finally, you will need calls to action, which will be what you want the users to do after they get your message. Now that we have branding and messaging figured out, let's start answering the questions we laid out in the beginning. What content do you need and why? If you already have online content, your content strategy might center on existing features. If you are setting out on creating completely new content, you have a wonderful opportunity to be a bit more creative and define exactly what features you want to include. Here we can start using the message hierarchy which we set up earlier. If any recommended content can't be linked to your primary, secondary message, you probably shouldn't be using it. This is where you need to go back to the analysis phase, where you worked out the budget, timeline, technology, legal requirements, and so on. If your proposed content promotes your business message and the restrictions of the project, then you have it. How will users search for and find your content? There isn't any point in creating fantastic content that no one can find on the web. Here are a couple of useful tips to consider when adding content to your website. Metadata. Metadata for the web search and site search engines, also known as meta tags. Page title tags, page description tags, HTML tags, and keyword tags. Metadata for content management systems. Effective metadata for content management systems allows information to be retrieved easily and generally make sure everything is structured and organized in such a way as to allow things not to get lost. Simply put, metadata is what search engines first see when scouring the web for the most relevant web pages. It's very important to have the right metadata. This will all become clearer as you work through the course. How will the content be structured? Your content needs to be structured in such a way that it makes sense to the user. Let's begin organizing your web content by looking at the 3 levels of content structure. Overall content structure, page template or patterns, page level requirements. At each level, make sure to focus on the following: content format, menu labeling, linking strategy, CMS content types, related content channels. They will be discussed in detail later. A content structure that is orderly and precise will make adding and creating the actual content at a later stage a lot easier. Sitemaps and process flows will help you create structured architecture. Page templates and page level requirements are usually used by the graphic designer or information architect to determine the general page layout. The page template and page level requirements level should be used as guidelines once they are set up by your web management team. It's the overall structure or how the user will navigate through your website that you should focus on more. Now that you know how your content will be structured, we can go back to what you must focus on in your considerations. Content format. Content format is the way you will deliver your content, whether through text, audio, podcasts, or visually through video, animations, etc. Your core message needs to relate to the content format. If you have a lot of products and you want to display them, you will need to use graphics and less text for the most of your site. If you want to supplement your products with how-to guides, you may want to incorporate video tutorials too. You need to make sure that the content formats you have chosen are easily achievable. If you haven't budgeted for video, then consider a step-by-step guide using text and pictures instead. Next, consider how portable you want your content to be. That is, will users be able to share and link to your content? Menu labeling. What are the main menus and sub-menus going to be called? We suggest you keep the following in mind. The labels need to support your business's key messages. Make sure the labels are in the right context. There's consistency and clarity when choosing menu labels. Linking strategy. This is the navigation within your site. What will link where and so on. Content management system content types. So you're developing a website or redefining an old one, chances are that it will come part and parcel with a content management system. A good content management system should be able to set up a default template to be used by all the pages in your site. It should also be able to easily make adjustments to pages that need separate templates to the rest of the site. A good CMS should have an area where the user, which is you, can add their own metadata and other search engine optimization functionalities. A good CMS will have a comprehensive workflow embedded so that you can clearly distinguish between content, menus, articles, files, and so on. All the information on the site should be easily manageable and easy to find. Content channels. How will content be delivered to the user? This may seem like an obvious answer. The web, where else? But there are a world of possibilities out there, such as Mobi sites. Will users have the ability to subscribe via RSS feeds or receive updates in their email inboxes? Will you submit online press releases, create a blog, or participate in social media, forums, and the like? From the content audit, you were able to discover your current site's full inventory. This is where you get to use that information. On your content audit spreadsheet, where you've listed what content you have and where it can be found, etc., add new content recommendations that you found were necessary, as well as the content structure you've just created. This will tell where your content will be organized on your new site, together with any new content requirements. Next, you will need to establish where your new content will come from. You need to find your contributors list, which could come from the following categories. Original content, content created by you or your organization. To create your own content, You will need to do your own research, finding source material and ideas. Co-create content. Oftentimes, big brands will make use of industry professionals, bloggers, digital agencies, podcasters, and other entities already in the business of writing online content. Licensed content. Using generic articles that can be relicensed is often not a good idea for your business's image. However, using stock photos that can be bought for a small fee is okay if you're not going to hire a professional photographer for your website. User-generated content. This usually falls along the lines of forums and social media. So user-generated content would work better on your Facebook page than on your actual website. How do we get from today to launch? That should be easy with a fixed content schedule. Things to consider when setting up a content schedule. The amount of content required. What are your new content needs? Are the requirements within the budget or time frame that was initially set up? The time it'll take to get the various items approved. When can the final approved drafts be sent for production? What's next once the content is out there? It's not difficult for content to quickly become dated, inaccurate or irrelevant after you have published it. The simple solution to this dilemma is to constantly re-evaluate and update your content on a regular basis. Digital agencies, like Sound Idea, often provide content management services. For instance, scanning the latest trends in design, technology, and news to provide insightful ideas to update your content. After the content audit, content analysis, and content strategy, you must have a mountain of paperwork documenting your plan of action. You've set the foundation, now it's time to lay the first brick. In the next module, you'll begin with the exciting task of content creation.